Conservative New Media viewers, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal, the four-time national champion and the super genius and the political expert, joined again by Paul F. Villarreal. We're still talking about Donald Trump and this whole situation with the Fox News debate and Megyn Kelly. Now, Paul, we've just seen a new NBC poll that has just dropped, NBC News, and it has Trump not only staying the same, he's actually gained. Trump has gained since this debate. He's improved 1 point. Now, there's been some stuff there, and I think I saw a lot of the pundits over the weekend and on the Sunday shows. In my personal opinion, first of all of our personal opinion only, not alleging any facts, not casting any aspersions, all for entertainment purposes only. Please check the disclaimers. Paul, I saw what I believe was some of these pundits talking about how there's this 10, 20, maybe 30%, this fringe element, this sort of outsider element, this edge element, whatever, all these different names, I heard the John Birch Society mentioned, I think by George Will, maybe I'm mistaken, I don't know, Eugene McCarthy, listen, I'm always tired on Sundays. I watch all the different shows. I can't say exactly who said what exactly when, so I apologize to the viewers for that. But I believe I heard these things said out there. You know what I mean? There's always this sort of like this kind of it seems to be some kind of some of the pundits seem to be making some kind of association with Trump with some kind of fringe elements. We've heard these kind of comments before with the Tea Party. But here's the thing, Paul. Have you heard, well, first of all, have you heard that kind of stuff, Paul, a communicator discuss about Donald Trump?
Well, look, I haven't watched the Sunday shows as much recently as maybe you have. So you would know better than I have. I have heard some association attempts with trying to put Donald Trump with the Tea Party. But when I think about that, I'll just say it quickly and then turn it back to you, is I think about Donald Trump, how he's evolved his position on abortion and how he was in the past for single payer. And when I hear John Birch and Joe McCarthy, it just makes me laugh.
Well, but here's the other thing, too. I remember, I believe it was Karl Rove on Fox News said something earlier on when Trump was starting to move up, that Donald Trump has I believe he said something like a high floor but a low ceiling or something like that. And again, it's this attempt to just to try to put Trump and those kind of supporters or that kind of sentiment in this sort of small box over here to the side where then you have the serious candidates and the grown-ups, and we hear all this type of stuff, or Trump's an entertainer, or the Huffington Post doesn't want to cover him in the politics page. You have all this different type of stuff. But here's the thing. With this new NBC poll, okay, let's broaden this out beyond Trump. The way I look at this is we talk about a change election. We talk about, outsiders versus the insiders. We talk about, real America versus the establishment, if you will. All these different sort of, or whether even on the left, it's this whole Occupy Wall Street thing, the 99% versus the 1%. However you want to frame it, there's been this movement on the right and on the left. I think there's a sort of a disgust, if you will, or a rejection, or a skepticism. You can depending on where you're coming from, depending on which movement you want to talk about. In my personal opinion, with DC, with politics as usual, with all the donor class and all this different types of stuff. And now in these polls, if you look at this poll and you look at the movement in this poll, let's talk about who's a fringe. Let's talk about where at least the pollers are telling us that the Republican Party primary voters are. Okay, if you take Trump is right now at 23%, so that's a big block right there. That's almost a quarter of the Republican Party. It's hard to call that a quarter of the Republican Party a fringe or a radical element or whatever. But let's say, okay, you got Trump at 23, but then who would you say is the most sort of whatever word you want to see that the MSM is saying, whether it's fringe, extreme, right wing, conservative, anti-establishment, whatever. Well, here you've got Ted Cruz that exploded with the biggest upside move. It wasn't Carly Fiorina. Carly has done great. It was actually Ted Cruz in this poll, up 7 points to 13%. So now you've got Trump at 23. You've got Ted Cruz at 13. Combined, now you're looking at 36, over 1/3. Okay, and then if you say, okay, well, who else is sort of a political novice, if you will, not part of the establishment, hasn't run and held 5 or 6 different offices or whatever it is, or hasn't been in the political spectrum here for 20 plus years, or has a family that has had this dynastic type of situation, at least on the Republican side. Dr. Ben Carson, he's now at 11%. So now you add that in the mix. Okay, so now we're 13 plus 11 plus 23. Okay, now you're sitting there at 47%, almost half of the party. And then you get to Carly Fiorina, whom I have met, whom I have interviewed a number of times, who is, fantastic and everything like that. And we love to see what she's doing right here. She's up to 8% plus 6. So now you add Carly Fiorina here, who, yes, she ran for the U.S. Senate, but she's never held political office or anything like that. And so I would consider her definitely an outsider, a businesswoman. An outsider. Absolutely an outsider, not part of that political establishment, whatever. So now you add that 8% to the existing 47%, and you're at 55%. 55%, over half of the Republican Party. Paul, what's your reaction to that?
I think that's spot on. And basically what you just said is that you mentioned 4 candidates. 3 of them are political novices. Carly Fiorina, Ben Carson, Donald Trump. Business, medicine, business. That's their background. And Ted Cruz is a politician, but he, as you mentioned, is using rhetoric similar to Donald Trump. We know in the debate he mentioned the quote-unquote Washington cartel.
Right.
He is taking an anti-politician angle, anti-DC angle.
He's gone after Mitch McConnell, Leader McConnell.
People,
right.
3 of them political outsiders and 1 of them attacking the political class, basically. You have a majority, 55% of the Republican Party. I think that totally refutes any concept that this is non-mainstream Republican Party thought. It clearly is. And if you needed any more evidence that it is, Jeb Bush, who you would probably consider mainstream or whatever, apparently the theorist would, he lost after the debate. He went down. People want the fired up Ted Cruz talk, not the milquetoast Jeb Bush talk.
Let's buttress that even more. If you've got 4 candidates right here, Trump, Fiorina, Carson, and Cruz, that, as you said, are either outsiders and/or anti-establishment and/or the most conservative and/or the most sort of critical of Hillary Clinton, right, and this current administration, right, Secretary Clinton, versus, let's talk about 4 of the, what I would consider the more establishment or liberal or rhino candidates, or however, there's all kind. I'm not saying I'm calling them that. I'm saying that there's different connotations, different sort of caricatures, different sort of labels that some people might put on them. Okay, and let's talk about Governor Bush, 7%. Right? That's as insider as you can get. That's as establishment as you can get. Okay, if you look at the pedigree, the donor list, all of the rest. Okay, so Governor Bush at 7%. Lindsey Graham, who's been very aggressive against Donald Trump. Okay, and some have called him, Lindsey Graham amnesty. I mean, there's all, Rush Limbaugh. There's all kinds, if I remember correctly. Okay, so we see in the whole, his association, the Gang of 8, and everything like that. So Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham, is at 1%. Okay, so 7%, 1%, and then let's add in Governor Pitaki. But Governor Pitaki, nice guy, and I'm not disparaging any of these people. Okay, I'm not against any of these folks, I'm not saying I'm voting for any of them, okay, but I have nothing, personal against any of these. I'm just doing some analysis, okay? We're doing some analysis. Governor Pitaki, who I would think, definitely long political resume. Definitely, you know, I would consider Governor Pitaki in the more sort of liberal, moderate wing, whatever you want to call it, of the Republican Party. He's sitting at 0%. Not even registering, dude. Okay, so Governor Pitaki's at 0%. And then what about Governor Christie? Governor Christie giving a hug to President Obama. Okay, Governor Christie, you know, was on MSNBC a lot. Governor Christie, some positions conservative, some positions liberal. I mean, there's, you know, there's different things like that. Governor Christie is at 1%. I mean, and you want to throw someone else in there? Let's throw in Governor Kasich. Heck, we can go 4 versus 5. Governor Kasich, well, he's doing great, and we love his answer on these things, right, and all this type of stuff. He went down. He's at 2%. So if you add all those people up, 7, 2, there's 9. Lindsey, Senator Graham, 1%. There's 10. Governor Christie at another 1%. There's 11%. And then you have Governor Pitaki at 0%. Five of the establishment and sort of more liberal moderate candidates are at 11%. And the more conservative anti-establishments are at 55%, greater than a majority. Well, sorry, a majority of the Republican Party is saying we want that. So what do you say to that establishment and Karl Rove and Frank Luntz and the pundits? That's a facial, Paul. What do you say to that?
Yeah, look, I mean, they've tried to, like, as you said at the beginning, they've been kind of, I guess, trying to characterize certain candidates as fringe, but what we're seeing here is that the majority of the Republican Party voters, at least according to this poll, are responding to these new faces and against the politics as usual crowd. That is the mainstream right now. That's what's being reflected in the polling.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say. Who's the real fringe? Who's the real fringe? The party, the voters are with the conservative, new faces, change faces, anti-establishment, politics as usual type of crowd, as opposed to the super long resume, the senators, the governors, the son of a former president, and all this type of, the more liberal, moderate ring, whatever you want to call it. They're not for it. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about right there. And I think that dynamic is going to continue to play out. Whether or not Donald Trump is top on the polls, that I don't think is going away. And we've seen a surge in Ted Cruz. And so, but I don't think Donald Trump's going anywhere. Okay, and we talked about that. Donald Trump has a message, and he's going to continue to go, and his message is resonating. And I think this is going to cause real consternation and perhaps even meltdown in the political beltway DC establishment. But let's also put this in perspective. Okay, so I wanted to put that right there square, and let's really talk about who the fringe is. Let's really talk about who represents the Republican Party. And the Republican Party in this country is a conservative party and a conservative country. And I think there's been this attempt by the insiders, the establishment, to take it over and water it down. But I want to talk about this, because here's the thing. I mean, listen, I'm all for everybody. I'm all for a big tent and a discussion and freedom and liberty and all that type of stuff. So I'm not here to exclude anybody. But, right, see, they were talking about, well, should Donald Trump be in the debates, and should we exclude him? And Eric Erickson of Red State didn't want him over there, and all this type of stuff. And you see, what's crazy to me about that is when you compare, this is what just drives me crazy. Right? You've got Fox News and tough questions for Donald Trump, and Megyn Kelly versus Donald Trump, and Eric Erickson, and all these types of things, and all that type of stuff. Notice the difference in treatment, Paul, of Donald Trump. Okay, and let's just say that maybe some of the things he said we don't agree with, and we don't condone, and we don't stand by anything. But guess what? We don't speak for Donald Trump. We don't have to agree with everything. Donald Trump speaks for himself. Donald Trump can handle himself. Donald Trump is a super smart, successful, super rich individual. He's a billionaire. Okay, so Donald Trump's just fine. Okay, and like we said, he makes mistakes. We make mistakes. We all make mistakes. He's all and Donald Trump fires back. Listen, if someone hits you or punches you, you got a right to defend yourself, and I understand that. But again, I'm not saying that I agree with or condone or, whatever, all of what he says. Just because maybe you or me or some of Donald Trump's supporters may want to support him or may like what he says on certain things doesn't mean that we have to support or agree with everything, and doesn't mean that we have to own all that type of stuff. That's all it is. But this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the super, in my opinion, hypocrisy. And I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, Russia's talked about this a lot of times, right? The lack of strategy or something like that. I mean, here's what I'm saying. Notice the difference in treatment between Donald Trump and Vice President Joe Biden. Okay, who has said, in my opinion, who has said more outrageous things? Donald Trump or Vice President Joe Biden? Who has said more inflammatory things? Strange things, Donald Trump or Vice President Joe Biden? And yet, who do you think is more competent? Who could do a better job as president? Donald Trump or Vice President Joe Biden? On the left, oh, it's just Joe. Don't worry about what he said. The 7-Eleven comment, when get up Chuck to the gentleman that it was in a wheelchair, was wounded and stuff like that. I mean, there's been on and on and on. That the video of him singing about the villages. I mean, there's so many different. I mean, seriously, like you don't even need to go back. You could, I mean, any given week you might be able to find something about Vice President Joe Biden. But that's all okay. No one's disinviting Joe Biden from any debates. In fact, they're saying maybe Joe Biden needs to get into this presidential race. But hey, Donald Trump, we can't be anywhere near him. No one's saying we don't want to talk to Joe Biden or we won't accept him or anything. Now, that's one example. Notice example now. How about example number 2? How about Secretary Clinton, who is basically who is the front runner for the Democratic Party? Now, what's more, I don't know, shocking, offensive, serious? Things that Donald Trump may have said in, as a verbal repartee, a little entertainment battle, whatever, with frankly, other celebrities. Okay, Rosie O'Donnell, whoever may or may not have been on the Apprentice, Megyn Kelly, versus Secretary Clinton and all this stuff in the news, whether it's the email servers, whether it's Benghazi. I mean, the Clinton Foundation. I'm sorry. What's really more offensive? What's really more potentially outrageous? I mean, Paul, can we put? And yet, no one's saying we're not going to have Secretary Clinton as our nominee. No one's saying. I didn't hear Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DNC head, to say that we're not going to have her in the debate. I didn't see any of these left groups saying we're going to disinvite Secretary Clinton. I mean, Paul, can you put some of this in perspective? Don't you think there's a lot of hypocrisy here? And don't you think that sometimes on the Republican side we're just too weak and just turn against our own and stuff like that? I'm not saying that we don't have to stand up for principles. I'm all for standing up for principles. But what principles are we standing up for, Paul?
Yeah, look, how many people are affected by what Donald Trump may have meant? I don't even know if it's what he said, what he may have meant in speaking about one person versus, as he said, whatever type of federal or whatever inquiries are going on for Secretary of State or former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It is kind of striking that the treatment that's being doled out here. I agree with you. When you think about it that way, as you said, is Hillary Clinton going to be disinvited from debates? Is she going to be not supported as a candidate? And maybe she would be, but as you said, this is a personal thing, one remark to another person versus whatever may or may not have taken place or was being investigated or allegedly investigated regarding somebody in a governmental office capacity. I agree. I think it's pretty interesting. And as you said, we must not, as Donald Trump himself said, this is a serious time. He knows his tone can be pretty strong sometimes, but that's because the times are pretty difficult right now. So he can't get kind of, as a party or as a nation, as anything, can't get distracted with minor things. That's what I believe.
Well, right, and I think that they've, you know, again, it's this whole thing between being see, I'm all for free speech and I'm all for liberty. If you like someone, you like someone. If you don't like what they're saying, you don't have to vote for them. Simple as that. But why are we trying to censor people? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Is the Republican Party the party of censorship? Is the Republican Party, or is the Republican Party the party of Abraham Lincoln, the party of freedom, the party of liberty? That's what I'm talking about. And that's a serious question that goes out to Chairman Priebus, that I will think Eric Erickson and Fox News and the rest of them have to really think about right now. Okay? And, you know, again, you countervail whatever, you know, politically correct sins you feel like Donald Trump has committed, whatever you don't like about Donald Trump, whatever, versus, again, things that Vice President Joe Biden has said over his long political career, all right, and the allegations and the news reports concerning recently, okay, concerning Secretary Clinton with, again, Benghazi, the email servers, and the Clinton Foundation, okay? And think about that. So, I mean, I just want this all in context right here, and I want someone to please explain to me from this establishment how this all works, because it seems like there's this weird Byzantine rules of political correctness, and again, the rules that seem to apply to certain candidates don't seem to apply to other candidates, particularly when they're on the left. And that is something that I think that we need to think about right there, and that's what I have to say about that. Any parting words that you have to say, Paul?
No, I think that this is a good kind of overview of what some of the issues are here and the way that the media is portraying them or not portraying them. No issues with Hillary Clinton, supposedly, but issues with Donald Trump. Supposedly, certain candidates are fringe while others are supposedly mainstream. But when you take a look at it more closely, it really doesn't come out that way. So we want the voters and the viewers to be fully up to speed and informed about how some of these things are portrayed versus what the reality can be.
So, what do you think about that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts? I want to hear from you. Give us the comments below. Please subscribe. Please rate this video up. Also, please post it on your social networking sites. Thanks so much for watching. I'm John D. Villarreal, the 4-time national champion, the super genius, and the political expert. That is Paul F. Villarreal. You're watching Conservative Media. We'll see you next time.